Welcome back, dear friends. It's a joy to see you again. I've got a new project. Let me explain what I'm going to do. Oh, and by the way, the extension is lovely and tidy now because I've got all the rest of the kits and things all packaged up and on the shelf, the hanging shelf of boxes. Well, the interesting thing about this project is I built it about 6 years ago. It was one of the, I think I'd built the barometric prognosticator first, and then thought, wouldn't it be nice to have a clock that doesn't go all the way around? It's the typical sort of perverse idea that prompts lovely steampunk machines and inventions, overcomplicated them as much as possible. And as we all do, we do love a good old-fashioned Victorian style gauge. So that's what prompted this. It doesn't go all the way around, as you can see. It's like the later version, but I'll come on to that in a minute. This one, however, has got, well, for a start, some interesting quirkiness. When I designed this, for some reason, I thought that there were 6. Each hour was divided into 6 sections, not 5, as I think is the common way of doing it. But I'm going to leave that, because why not? 12 is divisible by 6, so they're 10-minute, I think. I'll have to sort that out. Hopeless at time. But this one's got a stepper motor to do that, with a micro switch at one end so it knows where it is, and a servo motor to do the functions. And this design, I just got completely carried away with functions. Absolutely ridiculous. All these things, I can't remember what any of them do anyway. I decided, this early one, I said, why is there a reflection, isn't there, when you don't want one, to have a little pull switch with a chain, because I've seen one of these and I'd used it on a bit of furniture I designed. So I thought, well, that's good. Each time you click that, it can change the function display, and then you can make the adjustments with that. The other great thing about this one was that it was the first clock I designed. I worked out how to illuminate the dial, which took ages, I remember, trying to use light guides and wide angle LEDs, and until I realised that mounting 6 of the little surface mount LEDs would work a treat. You can just see the reflections down there. So it was a really useful project. I learnt loads from it. Rather than having this sitting around looking beautiful, once I'd put the singing automaton and her ukulele playing machine in the lounge and moved all the pictures around, there just wasn't room for it. And anywho, I used to switch it on regularly and enjoy gazing at the time on its dial, but then my kids, as they got older, got wretched mobile phones, hateful things, so obviously they just unplugged it whenever they wanted to charge their hideous phones up. There's a big fundamental problem with this, above all the other fundamental problems, which is it hasn't got a real-time clock in it. A real-time clock, I'll show you. I'm still working on that the monitor for my mum, so I sort of, because she obviously needs it, and I keep coming up with ideas for improvements, I can't take it out of her house and spend 2 days fiddling with it here and then put it back, because she needs it. So I built a sort of replica, but the replica includes this. This is a real-time clock module. You can get different sorts and things. It's got a clock on it, an electronic clock. This also has a little bit of memory that you can write to, which is useful. It's a crystal control clock, so it's nice and accurate. And it's got a battery on the back. Fantastic. Now that means once you program this with the time, set the time, you can switch the power off. And when you switch it back on, it'll remember the time. And it'll be very accurate, because this will work independently of whatever, Arduino, whatever you're using it to control. The other lovely thing about these is that they only need 2 wires to communicate. They've got 0 volts and 5 volts. And they've got the SCL and SDA connections for the I2C. Oh, I think I got that right. I hate acronyms, but never mind. I2C connection, they go to the similar connections on the Arduino. And again, with a lovely library, it can then talk to itself, to each other, both ways. And what's even better about the I2C communication is each little module that you connect to it has its own address. So you can have sort of 8 modules connected, all being able to talk independently, just with 2 wires looping in and out like a sort of daisy chain. As it was my first clock, so do forgive me, that I would use the milliseconds function thing on the Arduino. Now when you first switch the Arduino on, it's got a huge number in it, an unsigned long, and it starts counting up. Every millisecond it adds 1 to that number. But what I discovered was that milliseconds isn't that accurate. I believe it's because the processor, the Arduino processor, when it's doing some other thing, sometimes misses it or something. Please let me know in the comments. Be interested to find out, because I thought it would be 100% reliable, but it loses a few minutes a week. Hence the fact it's not that good a clock, you know. Let's face it. So, finally, to get to the point, I'm going to super improve it. I'm going to do a number of things to it to make it really good so that I can sell it, because there is no point in me having another thing floating around when it could be bringing a family of steampunk enthusiasts joy in telling or horological guidance, even telling the time. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep that gauge, the back, because that's big. I'm going to change this. I've decided, after some umming and ahhing, that I'm going to just reduce all these things. It's absolutely ridiculous. Just get it to display the time. So it's just going to have display time, set time, and set the type of strike there is. Because it's got a bell. One of the things that I do like about this arrangement with the PIR sensor is this is a junction box, plastic junction box for cables, because inside there's also room for a little motor, and then here, if you see, it's connected to a hammer that can ring the bell, like so. So I'm going to get that, and I mean, look at all this: passing strike, counter strike, the alarm set, it flashes, and oh, it's so complicated. I have no idea what's going on. So I'm going to redo this front panel and simplify it and spell anti right, as someone pointed out at a steampunk event. It's not anti like that, it's got an E at the end of it. And then I'll get back to you. It's sometime later and I've got it done. Look, there's the real-time clock, and I suddenly realised, because I've got that 3mm thick bit of acrylic that's supporting all the components, that I can just drill 2 holes and tap them to M3. I've got the other connections made, and then I've got the encoder connections just coming down to a little plug. So upload it, or test it with serial output, and then plug that in when it's all ready to go. It is lovely having so little to wire up, and the mechanisms and everything already done. It's really nice, because now I can just connect, notice the word, clever use of the word just connect it up to the laptop, and then just program it and get it all doing exactly what I want it to. I thought I'd work in the kitchen the other day, just because rather than shutting myself away in the extension, I can be with the rest of the family. They can get on my nerves by interrupting me while I'm trying to concentrate. There it is in all its glory, with its lovely glow and everything. And there's a sock with a teenage son and a dog. Socks are everywhere. They're very handy because they're good for testing PIR sensors. Pop it over there. Bob's your uncle, you can see whether it works or not. Also looks nice around the back, actually. There is a certain beauty in the little blue light on the micro and things. That's exciting. Now, the original sketch had about 500 lines at least, I think. I got completely carried away. This one, I think, is about down to 200, perhaps a little less. So I've got there. I'm very pleased with what I've done. And it really has been a joy with a real-time clock, because I can just look it up. There I say date, time now, get RTC now, real-time clock now, and you can just read the numbers now, hour, now, minute, whereas before, using those milliseconds, it was so complicated and unreliable. And just being able to unplug the whole thing and knowing when you switch it on, it will still know the time. For test purposes, in the setup, I'm setting the time, I realised that was quite a good idea, to 23:59, so that's 11:59, to see, I've been trying to get it to go back to 0. So what we'll do is we'll upload that. And again, always such a joy, you just click on the button, it then compiles it, uploads it, sends it through the USB wire to the clock. And then if I pull this, they can adjust the clock. You can, that's going to be change the chime preferences. and that's going to be display time. I think it's nice to have display time in the middle. Right, so it's reached 12. Is it? Yes! Oh, joy unbounded. Because I thought, well, to stop it having any sort of slowly increasing errors, it shouldn't, because it's a stepper motor, but it should, why not, just when it goes back to 0, it should go further and touch the button, so it always gets it absolutely right. And the bell has just chimed 12 times. I'm really pleased, thrilled to bits. One last thing before I smash it up, I'm just going to show you the adjustment. So I've plugged the encoder back in, and now you can see a teensy little movement there. Or you can go around. It has a pause because it needs to wait to make sure that you've stopped turning it. It does that. And then if you keep turning it and you go past 12, look, it changes the AM and PM and goes back. I'm very pleased to have got that sorted out. The amateur production went well, so that's out of the way. So things can calm down a little bit now. And then last night someone ordered a ready-made net throb. Well, exciting. And it's always a very good opportunity when I have to make one of these up, just to check that there's nothing wrong with the kits, you know, to actually put everything together. And especially just having finished 20 more kits, I think it was, and I discovered something so frustrating. The kits come with 2 of these circuit layouts, 2 in case you stick the first one on wrong. I like little things like that. You cut them out and you stick them onto one of these breadboards. I wanted people to be able to build their own circuits and electronic components, because it's really enjoyable. It's not the sort of thing that people usually have the opportunity to do. So all the components are laid out there and show you where to put them in. And I've been using these ones in the past, which are exactly the same as these ones. Same supplier, same cost, same everything. But, and the resistors, look, it's brown, green, brown, which is 150 ohms. When I put it in this one, like so, look, it's stiff. It makes a proper contact with one of the myriad of little connectors underneath. It doesn't go anywhere. But when I put one of these into one of the new breadboards that I've got for use with these kits, it falls out. The wire on these resistors that I've ordered from the same supplier for years is 0.3 millimeters opposed to 0.5 millimeters on all the other resistors I've got. That sticks. So I've had to identify the 3 different resistor values that the supplier has supplied me with thinner wires that just don't happen to fit in these ones, and order a load more, and I'm going to have to put them in envelopes and put them into all of the net throb kits with a note. But I'm really pleased to have done it, because if people had been building them and they hadn't been making contact, that would have been really frustrating, and I wouldn't have known the reason. So, good news anyway. And I was about to get on with cleaning up the lovely chronological numerator when I sold the last of the heraldic clarions. They're the heraldic clarion door horns. I'd made 6 before, and luckily, through no foresight or planning, I did have 6 of all the really important, difficult to get parts, like the air horns and all the brackets for the horns and the funny little twiddly brass and copper fittings. So I'm now going to get on with making another 6 of them, because just as with all the other kits, I can, well, these aren't kits, but I want to just do everything 6 times and get the whole lot done and boxed up, ready to go. And they all come with 1.5 meters of cable with them, which I can then attach, but there's an option to add longer and longer pieces of this lovely, beautiful copper colour cable stuff. And then if anyone does order extra, I'll just add another junction box and the extra bit of cable in. It made such a difference, because otherwise I used to, when I got an order, I'd have to take it all out of the box, open it all up, solder the piece of cable in. It was a right old pain. This is what I mean by the lovely copper colour cable. It's rayon, so it's not actually metallic. It's beautiful, and that's what links the heraldic clarion to a doorbell switch via a beautiful little wooden junction box. So I'm going to get on with that now. Rapid Electronics certainly lived up to their name. Next day delivery. Lots and lots, hundreds of lovely resistors. Here's one, and here's that wretched board, and I poke it in a hole. That's better. It doesn't fall out, and a really good firm connection. God, it's crazy, isn't it? 0.2 of a mil or something in it. So I can now put that into lots of envelopes and kits ready to add to the Numbnet Threadboard kits. 6 more horns, nicely painted up. Look, shininess. Ooh. Only 6 I'm making, but that's nice. Just a little batch production. My next job now, oh by the way, these were based on the Numbnet Threadwell enclosure, funnily enough. The same sort of dimensions on the end pieces. Also a bit of red felt stuck in there, it's a sort of air filter on the way in. My next job is to drill a 7.5mm hole through there for the horn to push in, which links up to the hole that I've previously drilled there that the pump pushes in. So there's no pipes in this, it's just made using a block of wood. And once the holes are linked up, I can then blow through it. It really is most enjoyable putting things like this together. Just doing everything you need in front of you, got the instructions, and just running along, doing the next step on each one at a time. I've just glued in the nice ornate cable entry. Next thing is to fix on the 2 Munson rings, the brass Munson rings that are going to hold the hall in place. Find a good film, sit here, happy as Larry, I tells you. Well, that was lucky. I just had enough of these washers. Look at that, I'd forgotten to count them up. 4 left. I'm thrilled about that. Here's a little top tip for you. If you do use this lovely cable, which I think is about 6mm diameter, if you put 2 pieces of 12mm heat shrink tube on the end, it ends up 8mm, which is just the right size. Focus. To get an 8mm olive on it. Then it will push into a standard 8mm compression fitting, like that one. And you can tighten it up, and it provides a really good cable clamp. I thank you. Sadly, I've now come down with the dreaded lurgy that everyone's brought home from their respective schools. Hoped I'd avoid it, but there you go. Hopefully it won't be too bad, but I think it's time to just bring this video to an end. I've got so many more bits and pieces I'm getting on with, so I think there'll definitely need to be a part 2. If I don't put any more videos up before Christmas, please enjoy the holiday season, and I hope to see you in the new year, and thanks very much for watching.